future programmes. Nostalgia can exert a powerful draw. It's quite amazing to think how popular vinyl records have become once again with younger music fans. But there are people out there who want to turn the clock back even further, to an era before LPs and 45s, when records had to be played on beautiful, wind-up gramophones. Well, Joanne Good slipped on her dancing shoes and went to find out more.
It's that grey old time of year when you sometimes want to imagine another world. So I've just been reading The Great Gatsby for the umpteenth time. As if summoned by the goddess of pleasure, one of my producers rang. He said, "Joe, I've got a film that's right up your street. Remember the old wind-up gramophones from the 1900s? People still listen to them." So yes, it's off into the world of Gatsby for me. It was a world of no electricity, as I was reminded very early on my trip to Christopher Proudfoot's house. He is the president of the City of London's Phonograph and Gramophone Society, and apparently he has 1 or 2 gramophones himself. From the moment you pull this wonderful old pull bell, you get a sense that any of the music emanating from these rooms is one of vintage variety. Christopher, hello, Joe. Nice to meet you. Oh my goodness. Wow. It's fantastic. How many gramophone players do you have?
I haven't got one. The only gramophone player in here is me.
Oh, I see. So gramophones.
Yeah, gramophones, exactly. Yes.
So I can see about 10 in here.
Yeah, well, there are a few more. I've never counted them, but there are an awful lot more around the house. I started with one just like that, but very, very battered. And in a junk shop in one of the streets near Victoria Station, they still had junk shops then, I found this. One of these lovely old things with doors in the front.
And how does it work? Is it like a music box? You wind up and...
Well, it's like a musical box in the sense that it's got a spring-driven motor, yes, a clockwork motor if you like, and you wind it up and you release the brake and away she goes.
I'm very fond of vegetables, I'm very fond of meat. In fact, I'm fond of anything that's really good to eat.
I've always liked any sort of obsolete machinery, as long as it's not electrical. I mean, they're old-fashioned even when I started collecting in the 1950s, though you could still buy them new. It was deliberately old-fashioned. I like being old-fashioned. I don't see any need to be with it, if you like. And it's a very simple piece of machinery which even I can repair when it goes wrong.
Every home has a television. Would every home have had one of these?
Most homes would have had a gramophone of some sort, yes, yes. Certainly, if you could afford it, you could have had a cabinet model, say, for the drawing room, and then you've had a portable to take out on picnics or, you know, use in other rooms.
Oh, my goodness, the size of that.
Yes, well, that's, believe it or not, the sort of hi-fi of about 1930.
So that's a modern one?
Relatively modern, yes, yes. That's, if you like, the peak of development of the acoustic gramophone.
So if you have a horn that size, then, does that mean you get a much louder sound?
Not so much louder, but better. The whole thing is scientifically designed, and you get a much fuller sound out of it. Normally, 78s are played with steel needles, which fortunately are still being made, and you have to replace them after every record because they wear out. The points wear to a state where they will wear the record in turn if you play another record with them.
It's quite loud, isn't it?
Well, this particular one is, yes.
It really is, Chris. Any chance you can turn it down a little bit?
Well, not really, no. There's no practical way of doing it. I mean, put a sock in it.
Sorry?
Put a sock in it is
put
the answer.
Put a sock in it?
Yeah.
Well, that's where the phrase came from.
That's where the phrase comes from,
Put
yes.
a sock in it.
Put a sock in it, yeah.
It would be sad if these gorgeous machines were just hidden away, only to be heard by dedicated collectors. They're still strutting their stuff, though. The Shellac Sisters DJ using only old wind-up gramophones. Jenny, why do you use 78s to DJ?
Well, I really love the original sound. It's so mellow and beautiful to hear. And what I really like about DJing with 78s is people love to dance to them.
But you're playing big venues, so how do you get the volume from one gramophone?
Well, we've had them modified with an electronic sound head that will plug into any amplification system. So they're original gramophones, but we can amplify them. We can play big nightclubs or at weddings, anywhere really.
So if the music has to be continuous, how can you do it with one gramophone player?
Well, when we play as a foursome, all 4 of us will have our own gramophones. We each play a record. One of us has to remember to wind them all the time, and it's not scratching and mixing. We just each play a record and then go off and dance with people.
Is there a bit of a retro scene going on with the young people?
Definitely. I mean, vintage clothes, vintage music, it's really in at the moment. Young people are really interested in this kind of music, and I think people are getting more interested in old analogue things anyway. You know, modern music, it's so compressed and digitised, but this is the real McCoy.
Kitty, Daisy and Lewis have taken the music world by storm by playing and recording music just as it used to be. Lewis believes that for it to work, it has to be authentic.
The first part of recording I was interested in was disc recording. So actually putting music onto the phonograph format, you know. So I had a small cutting lathe in my bedroom when I was a kid, which I got from an old guy who used to work in studios. And we'd just kind of make records for like people in my school and stuff, and the music was like UK garage and stuff at the time, so they'd have like a few people round and I'd cut them their music. I just had this fascination with technology and how it worked, and initially with 78s, yeah, because a lot of the music I like was on that format. I hope that our music inspires people to look back and find out, oh, like they hear something, they're like, oh, what's that, you know, what's that kind of feel, and to discover back and start digging through records and stuff. Like, that's what me and my sisters always did. We'd always be trawling through and finding stuff and going, you know, what is that, you know, that sounds great and stuff.
So with modern-day musicians like Lewis introducing a new young crowd to a fascinating musical past, could these vintage gramophones actually re-emerge in the way that vinyl LPs already have?
This gramophone's over 80 years old, still going strong, and I think it's given pleasure to so many people over all those years and continues to do so. You don't need expensive technology to play 78s, just get yourself a lovely wind-up.
There obviously is future in records because people are now starting to buy more and stuff. In here we could record a track like onto tape and then make a phonograph record at any speed we want, so 78 or 45 or whatever.
Well, they're pretty well everlasting. I mean, if you think about it, good clocks can go on ticking away forever and ever as long as you overhaul them occasionally and re-oil them and so on. And a gramophone is the same sort of mechanism. As long as people are interested in them, they will survive. And, you know, with people like me about, they probably will.
OK, today's technology has meant that whatever and at any time we can enjoy musical delights, and that's hard to argue with. But these wind-up sound systems couldn't be further away from our here today, gone tomorrow society. And looked after by the right people, hopefully they'll be here for some time yet.